Okay, great to be back at Chapel FM. I think we were just here before the pandemic in, I think it was whatever years, 2020, we lost track of time. So I say a very warm welcome along tonight. This event tonight, which is been broadcast to the World Wide Web, is part of the Irish Arts Foundation Irish History Month project. And basically, you can prepare as much as you want for something like this tonight. It's a question of people turning up. And so what we're going to do tonight is just play a few tunes. I'll introduce the musicians at various stages of the night. But we've got a few members of the Irish community, and I think, and the background, I don't know if the listener can pick up on this. We've got the projection of like some various photographs that we collected as part of this project. We actually did it back in, I think it was about 2010 we did it. It's about 14 years ago but we did it, and it's fairly timeless as you can see. And I'm actually privileged. My first guest that I'm going to introduce, not guest, is one of our musicians, Roisin Ferguson. I'm going to put, apologies if I put anybody on the spot tonight. It's nothing deliberate. Roisin, do you want to come join me for a second? All right, brilliant. Well, Roisin, back in I'm going to do a little bit of talking for you here, Roisin, so just bear with me. I think it was about 14 years ago, and you worked with us on this project. It was part of your placement when you were doing your
at university.
Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And little did we know that 14 years later would be broadcasted to World Wide Web. Can you remember your experiences of working on the project?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. I knew that it was really important for me in general because my father's actually an immigrant himself. He comes from County Mayo. And obviously growing up in an Irish household, you hear about this so much, about how the importance of coming over to Leeds and what that meant for him and his identity and what that meant for us. So when Des actually asked me to be part of this as part of my university placement, I signed up for it straight away because I know the importance of what they went through, what they experienced, and also making sure that that communities are made aware of what they went through, because it transitions over time, things change, but people's experiences are still relevant. So that's why we thought it was really important, and we had a great time in all fairness.
It was, to be fair, as I said, sorry, excuse us, just been a bit of a love in here, but it was one of those projects that I think we said at the time that as five of us actually worked on the project, and we were all of different generations. Actually, I dare to say, I think you were the younger end and I was the older end, and so we went for a blend of youth and experience. I think I was the experienced, you were the youth. But there's five of us worked on it, and I think that the feedback that we got afterwards, we sort of joked internally that we thought, in sort of typical, again in a complimentary sort of way, in typical Irish fashion, if we did a great job on it, nobody would have told us. But if we'd made a right hames of it, we'd never hear the last of it. So we worked on the basis that, we got no feedback on it whatsoever. So we thought, well, we must have done a good job. You mentioned, Roisin, just your dad came over. I've known you. I've known your dad. He's known myself and now Kevin there probably since we were about 10 or 11 years of age. He came over to Leeds in, I think, about the early 60s. Is that right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
From Foxford?
Yeah, Foxford, County Mayo.
Which we've got a couple of Foxford people.
That's all right, because it might be easier to put you first. Cheers.
Okay, this one here. Right?
Yeah, cheers. So it's easier.
Great, that's fine. So apologies to the sound team. Your dad came over here in the 60s, met your mother. She was a Leeds Irish lass.
She was indeed, yeah. My grandparents are from Cork and Roscommon, so they actually owned a lot of the pubs around Leeds, and my mum obviously was always in the pubs helping them out and stuff, and that's where her and my dad met at the dances and at the pubs. So
that's great.
Yeah.
And they've obviously passed that tradition on to yourself, and you all through the family through the music and carrying on those traditions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're still working with us today. So it was great. It was a great project to work on.
Brilliant, really good project.
That's fine. We'll have a few tunes in a second, but we mentioned the Leeds Mayo connection. Your dad from round there. Huge connection in the city, and I think one of the things that we picked up on was we've got, if we can imagine a map of County Mayo, and everybody says, oh, Leeds is a big Mayo county, which if you imagine Yorkshire, it was actually one particular area of Mayo that they came to Leeds from, so which leads me into speaking with our first guest in inverted commas tonight, originally from Foxford, Mary Harkin. Big warm welcome for Mary. Mary Harkin, all the way originally from Foxford, if I'm not mistaken. Mary, can I ask you first of all, in front of the less Yorkshire question, what brought you to Leeds?
My friend, my neighbours from Foxford, she used to write to me. She would come over here and tell me how you could get a bus every so often, you could go to the dances, you could go everywhere. So I was working in the Foxford Woolen Mills at the time, and on the spur of the moment, I gave in my notice. They said they would keep the job open for 6 months, that I wouldn't like England. And that was 60 years ago last July.
Brilliant.
So I came to Leeds, and that's it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And did you find it made a big difference, the fact that there's an awful lot of people from around the area in the city with it? Did that sort of get rid of the sense of any loneliness, or did you look on it? A lot of people I've spoken to...
We wondered where everybody went that was coming to England. We wondered where they are. Where are they? Honestly, they were here in Leeds.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put somebody on the spot here who's just beside me, originally from Scotland, but you actually, Kathleen Doherty, you had the misfortune to marry a Mayo man, from what I gather.
I have married a Mayo man, yes, but I am Irish descent.
Of course, yeah. and Tony, so from memory, a Belmullet man, is that right?
He's the man from Belmullet, yeah.
That's great.
And I think he came over here in 1965, and I think then in Belmullet, they were coming to pick the potatoes up in Scotland and things like that, and they would have a group of men and they would bring them over, and I think that's what he did then, and then eventually I think he first came to Lincoln and then finished up in Ireland. In Leeds.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Great, that's fine. I'm going to move again. It's hard not to in Leeds, but I'm going to move from another part of the country, and everybody's. I can see everybody quaking in the boots. I think am I next? But I'm just going to go up to. We're going to go up the country up to Donegal. Mary Brown, sort of. Yes. Mary, just remind me what brought you to Leeds?
My brother was in Leeds before me. My brother was in Leeds before me, and actually I was going to go to Canada, not Leeds. But my grandmother talked me into going with my brother to Leeds, and that's how I ended up coming to Leeds.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's great. Again, like myself and a few of us here, we've got sort of I'd class myself as a sort of, if there's such a term, Leeds Irish lad, and I'm just... Again, he's just sat in here wondering when it's going to be asked. Bernard McGrath, who's done a lot of sort of historical research on the Irish community in Leeds before we did. Bernard, you were like Kevin and myself, South Leeds lad. Your experiences, you'd be in the nicest possible way a few years older than myself, and you probably remember some of the harder times for the Irish community in the city and before the good times. Anything to add to that, Bernard?
Well, not really. I mean, I remember, obviously, in the 70s when things were, should we say, for the want of a better term, very lively north of the border. The atmosphere there was in this country towards the Irish community, the Irish-born and also second generation. If you stuck your neck out and said, I'm second generation Irish, you became part of, in some people's eyes, part of a society. It was a brave thing to do, but there was a real, almost palpable fear of being identified as being Irish, associating with the country, with its culture and everything else. I remember actually feeling that.
And again, I think, Bernard, just bits and pieces are coming to mind. You're actually, I think it's 25 years old this weekend. We've got the St Patrick's Day parade, but I think it was basically yourself and three or four other people came up with that idea back in sort of, does that sound about right?
Not strictly speaking so. It was Tommy McLaughlin's idea, actually, and he said to a few of us, who were actually in the centre at the time, have you thought of the St Patrick's Day parade, lads? No. So thought, that's a good idea. So we got together, there were five of us. There was Jacinta Culkin, there was Maggie Kearns, there was Tom Culkin, there was Kevin O'Connor, myself, John and Patricia Smith, and Paddy Aylward. And we were the first committee to actually start the St Patrick's Day parade. I mean, if we realised, when we started it, just how much work it would involve, God knows how much work it takes now, I don't know whether we'd have actually stuck with it. But it's hugely to the credit of the subsequent committees that the St Patrick's Day parade has become what it is today. You know, very, very much so. But that was the very, very start of it, going back all the way to the year 2000. And just one thing I said I'll never forget on the first St Patrick's Day parade was we turned. You could walk go down Briggate then in those days. I can't remember if traffic was allowed there or not. But we turned down the hedgerow into Briggate, and I remember that it was lined with people applauding. Yeah. I'll never forget that. People just clapping.
I think it was very difficult, Bernard, as I say, a phrase used earlier on, just use a bit of a love in here, but I think it was very, it was a post-Good Friday agreement. It became a very, very different time to be Irish or second generation. And as I said, I know in the room here tonight we've got people from different cities apart from Leeds. So I would think it's mirrored in places like Manchester, Birmingham, the same sort of experiences. But that was probably about the time, Bernard, wasn't it? Would you say without putting a timeline on it? Would that?
I would say that was part of it. I'd also say what's also contributed to a large degree is the fact that Ireland itself transformed over the past 40 years. It's now economically, socially, culturally so different from the Ireland I experienced when we go back on holiday. You know, it's almost like a different age. And to a large degree it is. I was saying to somebody recently in the Irish Centre about what Ireland was like 20 years ago. And they said it's changed even since then. I know it has. Now, I think that part of the pride in having an Irish identity stems not just from obviously the fact that things were moving forward north of the border with the Good Friday Agreement, but then also was a national pride that our country had now, if you like, to use a cliche, really become a nation once again. It was a very vibrant part of the European Union. You may have different views on the European Union. Very vibrant part of in the European Union. It was becoming affluent. It was becoming cosmopolitan, and that I think was part and parcel of a renaissance, which has come. My parents are not Mayo; they're County Cavan.
Thank you for that, Bernard. The last bit. I'm just while Bernard was speaking, a lot of people are just keeping an eye on the photographs that are on the loop, and this took an awful lot of effort. And I'm just looking over there at Roshi, and we went round to various people's houses, people that we knew within the community of different generations, and I think we got all sorts. I know we're just looking down at our Kevin there. We got and my niece Eve, one of your mum. Eve, she was about 11, 12 years old, an Irish dancing championship in London, and there was all sorts that we managed to pick up. So as I say, that was one of the great. It was a really enjoyable project. As I say, I'm just looking around the room and seeing various people thinking, oh, that was so and so, that was so and so. I'm just looking at Mary Harkin there. She's I've never seen her as quiet. And just looking at some of the photographs that's going on. We're gonna have a few tunes in a second, but I'm just gonna pass the microphone round a couple of members of the audience to sort of just give their sort of background, because as I say, we've touched on, obviously Bernard mentioned his own parents from Cavan. We've touched on the Donegal connection, the Mayo connection, but we've got a couple of people who are probably the first time here at Irish Arts events, and we were just chatting in the cafe bar before we came up before the broadcast, and so as I say, you might need a bit of thought of this before the microphone comes up, just to sort of give a little bit about your Irish background, your connections, any connection with Leeds or different cities, and then guys, we might have the band back for a few tunes and have a word with a few of the members of the band as well at the same time. Can I? On the spot. Lady from Otley. It's like I feel like it's like Newsnight here. Lady in the blue jumper on the top right, and then the camera comes down. You've come in from Otley tonight, is that right? Yeah. Was it what? Rodley rather.
From Rodley, yeah. I've just seen the Regent pub up there, and that was. Sorry, the Regent pub's just been up on the screen. I used to work there when I was about 16, I think. My dad, Bill Devers, came from County Mayo, from Attimas. was from Galway, Athenry. My children's father's also from Attimas, and he lives there now.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Helen Carney.
Okay, great. Helen,
Okay.
Brilliant.
Jan Jackson. I have got, our ancestry is sort of Scottish, and when my dad did some family history, he did find a connection, but we didn't get any names, but we think we've got connections with Donegal, and from there they went over to Scotland, and sort of that's about as much as I know about my Irish connection as Donegal, but no family names. Well, the name was Friel on my dad's mum's side. So.
Great. That's fine. That's great. Just before we get back to the band, I'm going to two new people who've been first time I've seen you both at the Irish Arts Foundation events. You mentioned the connection from the Northern Ireland. All right. So can I just hand over to you, and you can just fill us all in a little bit more. If you want to introduce yourselves and then tell us a little bit, and also if you can mention how the family ended up coming to Leeds. Brilliant.
Sure, thank you. Great. I'm Ellen Shahan, and this is my sister. Hi, my name's Halima. And our dad came from Belfast in the 70s because he needed to get out. It was that time, and Leeds was the place where he had some things set up and was able to do that.
They were quite keen to get young men out of the area, so he was able to get a grant and have his university paid for at Leeds University. So he was really, really lucky to be able to have that experience. And he really enjoyed Leeds, and he stayed on. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fine. Okay, so obviously some very, very sort of very varied stories there that we've got. We're gonna get. I'll come to the good people on my left-hand side in a second. Unless you don't want to be put on the spot, I think the two ladies will, but you've not said no. We're gonna go back to the band, our in-house band, and we're gonna play a little polka, and just on about the mention of traditional Irish music. I think Helen mentioned earlier on about a pub called the Regent, which is like, should we say, it's a very, very well-known pub in the late 60s to mid-70s. And we might ask Jim Doody to say who's with us on the harmonica tonight, to say a few words about arriving in Leeds. I won't take your script here, Jim, but about arriving in Leeds and your memories of that pub. And then I think our Kev there, that's probably where you had your first pint, Kev, I suspect. All right, that's about right. So we'll do a little tune, a little polka called Maggie in the Wood. And do you mind if I join you guys for the tune? Great. Okay. Okay. 2, 3. 2, 3, 4. Okay, thank you. That's nice. I'm going to just have a quick word. I'm going to Ron. I get my pronunciation right at the radio. I'm going to have a quick word with Jim and Maria Doody, good friends of mine from many, many years ago. And Jim, you were actually London Irish born.
Well, we came up here from London in 1969, and I had been playing music myself in London at that time, and I'd been reared in County Galway. My mother came over, and she had to pretend she was Welsh because they wouldn't employ Irish women around the London area. She had a good life eventually. I'll never forget when I came up to Leeds, we went to the Regent, and there was great music being played there. I met a man called Patman Nicholas, who was an incredible character. And he had come over from Mayo originally with his father and his brother, and they came over so that they could get employment at the fairs, the hiring fairs. And they used to go and work up in Wensleydale for a season. And I'll never forget a story that Pat told me once. His father said, well, we've earned a bit of cash, lads. I'm going to take you out for the day. And they got a coach, and they went to Scarborough. And they're walking down the street in Scarborough. And Pat said to his dad, he said, Daddy, look, in the cafe window. He said, they're eating shamrocks, he said. And of course, they were cress sandwiches. And he thought that everyone was eating the shamrock, you know. But he was a great man, and he was a flute player. And there were some really interesting people that had great lives and were good musicians. And some of their sons and daughters are still around playing, thank goodness.
Thank you very much, Jim. Lovely. I think just I'm going to bring Roisin in back here for a second in just about the project that we did. It was apart from we looked at things like the sort of settlement. We looked at various things where the Irish community settled in the city, and I think the area that again, it's not like somebody once said. Did all the Irish do in Leeds was work, drink, and play, music, whatever. But they used to, after Mass on a Sunday, your dad will remember this, and your grandparents, God rest them, when they had the pubs. There was an area of Leeds around, in East Leeds, we'd have Hare Hills and Chapeltown, which were the inner city areas, which it's probably in the 50s and 60s, that the Irish community settled in. And I know a couple of the ladies that I've spoke to earlier on probably lived in those areas. But in there, towards the nearest to the town, we have the area of Sheepscar, and all the public houses. There's a couple of big Catholic churches around there. Off the top of my head, St Augustine's, the Holy Rosary. After Mass, the fellas would go down. They would go down after Mass before the dinner on the pretext to get a copy of the Western People. That's the Mayo newspaper. Like, how on earth it took them 3 hours after Mass to get a copy of? What was that, Mary? That's right. They might as well have been that, but and then they would go home, and then they would go home for the dinner,
Yeah, definitely.
and they'd have a sleep, and like some of them would have like a copy of the Western People print on the head because they'd fallen asleep with the Western People on the forehead. But all those sort of things, Roisin, we sort of. We managed to, a lot of it was received knowledge that we'd had already, or personal experiences, family experiences, but we managed to tease a lot of those stories out, Roisin.
Loads of them, loads of stories. The dads and mum have always got stories dating back from the Regent and the Roscoe and all the times. And I remember they always used to tell the story about the time that the bus went into the Regent. And it was in all over the newspapers, and the tiles on the Regent, when it was still a listed building at the time, had to be ordered from abroad because it was a listed building at the time, and it's no longer there obviously anymore, which is a shame. But they used to tell the story of that, and they used to say how they'd woke up and they were just like, what has gone on? And just the silly stories like that, which they can look back at and laugh at now and things like that. But no, there's some great memories that they talk about all the time, and it's lovely to grow up in that environment and hear that, and go out yourselves and make your own friends and replicate those memories.
Excellent. And as I say, just sort of things obviously the music was a thing that we had an interest in ourselves, but we also looked at things like say where the sporting grounds in Leeds, and again, just drawing a map of Leeds, down Scott Hall Road, there's a big Gaelic football pitch. That was all around that area. All sorts of little bits and pieces that were intertwined in the community, and I think one of the things that we were aware of, but came out, and particularly some of the photographs that we got, was the role of the church, with and I'm going to say in particular the Catholic Church, and that's not meant in any sort of differential between different religious communities, but I suppose the reality of it that was that the community came over predominantly from the west of Ireland and the northwest of Ireland, and the church was such a big influence socially, and I think we were doing this talk a few years ago, Roisin. I don't know if you were with us. It was in I think your dad was actually one of the people that was being interviewed, and a very, very well-spoken, well-dressed Dublin lady actually asked us, what about the Protestant community? And she didn't ask it in an antagonistic sort of way. It was actually obviously in an academic way. And I won't say I had to think about it, but I suppose the reality of the Irish community coming to Leeds was that it was predominantly a Catholic community that came over from one particular area of the country. I think that's kind of unique to what we found. One of the things we found, Roisin, you might help me out on this one. You might be getting tie the sound of my voice at this stage. Apologies, but what we found was that unlike other cities, Leeds had just one Irish centre, and whereas other cities like Manchester, Birmingham, all the things like the Catholic clubs or the church clubs, they actually stayed in some of those suburbs. Whereas in Leeds, a lot of the clubs actually, including the old Irish National down in Briggate, that was closed. So it meant that basically everything was centralised outside of where people used to socialise in Sheepscar. The Shamrock that in town. Thank you for that, Mary. So people would go to the Shamrock. They would go to the Irish Centre, and I think we were just talking in the bar, and I think the strange thing in Leeds is everybody seems to know each other in some shape or form, or so somebody who's related to each other. And I know that's a very, very sweeping generalisation, but have you anything to add to that, Roisin? You're gonna...
No, I agree completely. I feel like the Irish community in Leeds still now is thriving, and I still feel like that, you might go to the Irish Centre on a day when it's not even busy, and you'll know somebody, or someone will know your dad, or someone will work with your uncle, and I do think it's nice like that, because no matter where you go, you've always got someone you can communicate with. But on what you were saying before in regards to coming over here and the different backgrounds and stuff, that was, funnily enough, one of my dad's favourite things, is that he came from obviously such an Irish Catholic background, and then he came to Leeds, and there were so many different communities, and that is actually one of his favourite things now. He's got friends from all different, backgrounds and races and religions and colours and creeds, and that's one of his favourite things, that he ever moved to Leeds, because he says he thinks he might have been a bit isolated back in Mayo, and now he's got friends of all different backgrounds, and he thinks that was really important for him.
That's very good. Yeah, good point. I'm going to actually just give my tonsils a bit of a rest here. I'm going to hand actually over to my brother Kevin, just to say a little bit about our own family background. It sort of mirrors an awful lot of people who are sort of where we went to where we went to school. So Kevin, can I just hand over to yourself? What's that? Interview. Oh, I don't want to interview you. Where was your brother from, Kevin? That's my brother that I'm interviewing here, by the way.
Well, a lot of you will know my mum. She actually comes from Mohamore in Mayo, which is quite near Knock International Airport. So, or Knock, in fact. So up until the Pope coming to visit in when was it? 1981.
Something early
81.
80s, yeah.
She always said she was from Mohamore in Mayo, but once the Pope had gone to Knock, she was from Knock. So, but it's interesting because my mum's very, very religious. It's given her a lot of comfort through her life. She's had difficult times, and I think that that side of it, possibly setting aside the religious overtones of it all, you know, it was a community, you know, and I think we all, you know, we were altar boys, weren't we? We were going on the mayor procession.
I got, yeah, it was odd having this. I don't know if you had anything at St Augustine's or any of the parishes at this side of town, but we used to have a May procession. I'll let you finish this one, Kevin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we lived in Beeston, which, as Bernard touched on earlier, was, you know, it had its areas. But yeah, Mum would starch our altar outfits and would go on the May procession. And about the local lads, you know, they were quite forthright in calling us what we thought we were. But we used to play football with them in the park, and let's say the next game of football was quite physical.
Yeah.
I think we got our own back a little bit, didn't we? But no, for me, sort of growing up as a second generation Irish lad in Beeston, it's just good memories. You know, I think Bernard, you know, I was sort of late 70s, and I think I was. The Irish always sought to, you know, they worked hard, had lots of community, and things improved, didn't they?
Very much so.
And you know, we could go and play Gaelic football in the park. You know, old friends of ours.
I scored a point once from St Anthony's, Kev. You might remember that.
Was that your one game?
It was.
But no, sadly, a chap, Eddie Hosty, passed away today. He lived in Tipperary. He was one of the stalwarts of the GAA team in Beeston. John Comiskey, God rest him. Great guys, you know, did it all voluntarily. But the joy he gave to us all, you know, it as being part of a football team, was great. You know, so for me, music, football, you know, it was a really, really happy childhood, thankfully. And I think that continues today.
Yeah.
You know, second and third generation are continuing the tradition, be it through music or sport or whatever it might be.
Can I bring in? I'm going to just move things on a generation, most Kev, if I may. Kev's daughter, my niece Eve, is with us. She's actually just flown in from Belfast. And Eve, do you want to bob to stage for a stage, like about 3 feet away from me? You've taken up the music. I know. And how have you found? You know, a lot of your friends would be second, third generation Leeds Irish, and just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I've actually played violin since I was about 7 or 8, so I've always really had Irish music, and then being part of like the Ceilidh bands and competing in like the Flowers has been a big part of my life, and it's probably like my main hobby. And I've had really good friends from it as well, so it's quite good. And all my friends also keep up with the Irish tradition as well. Brilliant. It's good, yeah.
Brilliant. And I gather you're going to be on the float on the parade on Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Leeds Cultist float because we do it every year. All the young musicians, and there's some that are a lot younger than me now. There's a lot of younger people coming up, so it's good.
Are you feeling like one of the older stagers now, Eve?
Yeah, it's weird now coming back because now I don't know all the people who are in the Leeds Culters because they're all like what I used to be 10 years ago, so it's a bit weird.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's good though.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eve. I'm just going to before we have another set of tunes, and I don't know if we're going to have a little break in the show. Elliot, I'll leave that up to yourself. We've got another jingle coming up, but I'm just going to over to my right hand side. A couple of new guests who've joined us. So can I keep the format, and just as I say, if there's no Irish connection whatsoever, say no Irish connection whatsoever. Everybody manages to find an Irish connection. God knows how. I remember John Hurter years ago. He was one of these programs. Who do you think you are? He was absolutely devastated that he couldn't find an Irish connection. I mean, I don't know where that one came from. He was in tears almost. But anyway, I'll hand over to yourselves if you want to say a little bit about. Okay.
Well, I managed to hit that button first of all because any Irish connection that I have or that I know about at the moment is very tenuous. My grandmother used to say that her grandmother was as Irish as they come, but I cannot find any evidence to substantiate that. So my reason for being here tonight is purely academic. I'm East Leeds born and bred, and anything connected with local history, I'm on it and loving it. These two have got a bit more than me.
I'm about, I think, a sixth generation. My great-great-grandparents came from, my great-great-grandfather came from County Mayo, and my great-great-grandmother from Roscommon. And they've always lived, so like central Leeds it was, down at Somerset Street, Wellington Yard. My mum was brought up in Limefold, at the bottom of York Road. So it's just through family history really that, you know, I'm interested.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm just going to put, I might get killed for this one later on, but I'm just going to put Helen on the spot to just mention about a little Manchester Irish connection. So you might kill me later.
Yeah, my granddaddy, he was a blacksmith in Westmeath, and he used to play the fiddle, and they all used to come and listen to him in the evening. And my mum came over here in the 50s. She moved to Manchester, and met my dad there. She worked silver service waitress at the Midland Hotel, and my dad was a porter at the hotel, and that's how they met. And then they moved to Moss Side, to Greenhays in Moss Side, but those houses were condemned, and we ended up in Widdishire. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Helena. I think there's a couple of things that sort of there's similarities there. I think we're just a couple of things which are I'm going to refer to as our local historians. We mentioned about the East Leeds connection. Obviously, after the project that we worked on, Roshi, and I'm just going to bring you back into this one, was we purposely took the period from 1950s onwards, because I think there'd been actually quite a bit of work done. And again, I think Bernard might have been involved with the God rest them, the Kennellys. They did an awful lot of work about the Irish communities that settle in East Leeds, around Richmond Hill and the area that you know as the Bank. So again, that was great to have that. That was great to have that resource. And just hearing about, say, my great grandfather, or my great grandmother, and places down like we know around sort of, but as we know down sort of York Road, Richmond Hill, that sort of area, that sort of comes back. I think and some of the research that we did, we sort of traced it back then. But as I say, we intentionally looked at this project from the 1950s onwards. That was like the remit. And I suppose it was a project that myself and my colleague, who some of you know worked with, Chris O'Malley, his parents were from Louisburg, and his mother was Donegal. That we'd got an awful lot of received knowledge, both like Chris would be 10 years younger than me, and so we did have that. There's almost like it wasn't people of sort of the one age that we're looking at, and then we got, should we say, Roisin with the younger side. So we had dare I say it, we had quite a strong team on board, even though none of us were academic researchers. We did have that sort of received knowledge to start with, and just there was various things that come to mind. Like from my point of view, I'd not that I'd been evicted from different places, but I'd lived in different parts of the city, in different parishes, for want of a better word. And I suppose like going to places where Jim has mentioned, Kev's mentioned places, some of the pubs around Sheepscar where the Irish communities used to socialise. We would be aware of those communities in Hare Hills, Chapeltown, in the inner city. And I suppose I lived in Headingley for a little while, so I was aware of like the communities around Hyde Park, Headingley, Burley, around those sort of areas. And I suppose, Kev, I'll just bring you into this one as well. Kind of a lot of our friends that we went to school with, sort of, we all, there was only, again, I'll purposely focus on the Catholic element for a second. We came from all, we only had two, from a lad's point of view, we only had 2 or 3 Catholic schools together, one big Irish centre. So everybody, almost by default, whether you wanted to get to know somebody or not, you got to know them, if that makes sense. So there was also all those things like the fabric, those things going on. And what you tended to find, I'm gonna mischievously bring our Kevin in on this, because our younger brother Andrew, he was the only one of us that did Irish dancing. And a good friend of ours from Newcastle, he said many years ago, Tom McElvug, remember he said to her, he says, if I had my time over again, I'd have never given up Irish dancing. Kev, I'll let you finish on that one.
I'm not sure where you're going with that, Des. Yeah.
Basically, there was, as a young lad, like it was just all the lads played Irish music and all the girls did Irish dancing. That was he said he'd have never given up Irish dancing again. I think the man over there. I'm not going to in any way smutty on that one. It was just a bit of. It was just the way things actually, in all seriousness, it was the way sociologically that's how things tended to work out. Because if you go back in history in Ireland, it was generally the Irish music didn't have a particularly good reputation. It had all sorts of connotations with you'll get up to no good, you'll be drinking too much, and all this sort of stuff. So, and it was, people farmers would lose days work and things like that. So it was predominantly, I would say nearly exclusively played, traditional Irish music was played by the men. And you look back, this is going a little bit too deep, but some of the old Cayley bands, you might have had something like 10 people in them, and it would have been one female, one female, 9 men, and the female will have been probably something like the piano player or one of the more elegant instruments. It would have been something like the drums or anything like that. It would have it was a very, very male dominated hobby, and same as like, but back then, even probably I would say until probably post Riverdance, Irish dancing was.
Don't forget, the best concertina players were always the women.
Good point, Jim. As I say, so it's probably with all due respect, that could be another evening's discussion in itself. But I know exactly where you're coming from on that one, Jim, particularly in County Clare. So, but I'm just going to touch on one final, just when we start to wrap up things, and just as I say, if you got any questions from the floor, I think it was just something that Helena mentioned, and I'm just looking at some of the ladies that are interviewed earlier on. I think the guys went out to work, and the mums didn't. The mums looked after the kids. I'm just taking this as a sort of. This would be about right, but then when the kids got to say teenagers or secondary school, there were a lot of silver service. I think that was a. Does that sound about right? I think a lot of my mum's net. I'm looking at Mary Brown up there, and I think there's a whole raft of the ladies in the community went out to work in silver service. That was the guys would go out to work in civil engineering or plant hire in the day, and then later silver service. I'm the two lads at the front are nodding. I mean, does that sound familiar at all? Yes. Yeah. That's the buses. That's that. As I say, apologies to anybody who didn't pick up on that. And in fact, there's all sorts. This is why I don't prepare for this talk, because there's all sorts come back at me. And again, I'm just looking at our Kev there. Like our mum in the 50s, she worked as a clippy. Is that what you used to call them? That's what you used to call them, the clippies. The little. The ticket machine, yeah, it was that was another of the. I think my mother and a few of her friends when they first came to Leeds, that was, and I think sometimes you'll watch some of these programs that have come up about the Windrush generation, which have been very, very popular over the last 2 years, but it's not often documented that a lot of the Irish women worked were Clippies as well. That was not just in London, but in Leeds. And I would say the same experiences resonate across Manchester, Birmingham, Coventry. Those sort of things sort of come in. And I'm just... Nursing. Mary, can I just give a little plug while I'm on for a little event next Friday, which we've got. Thanks for the prompt there, Mary. We've got a little event at Kirkstall Abbey about 10 o'clock, and it's about Irish nurses in the NHS. It's part of the Irish History Month project, and that touches on that, like, as a person who's interested in social history of this type. I've seen the talk before, and it's well worth going along. So that 10 o'clock next Friday. So I've got one of the ladies I think might be an ex-nurse. Are we going with that, Kathleen? Is that? No, Rose. Sorry. Rose, go on. Rose, yeah, I've missed you out there. Go on, Kathleen. Can I just hand you the microphone there? Oh, we're back on. We're back on. Sorry, Art.
Hi, my name's Rose Malarkey. I was born in Northern Ireland, 20 miles from Belfast. And in 1967, I came here to train as a nurse at St James's Hospital. Trained there for 3 years. And the first Christmas I was here, the first year students always got holidays. And I came, and within a week, I came for my interview. Within a week, I'd started my nurse training. And I was really looking forward to going home at Christmas. And of course, 1967, we had foot and mouth disease. So I didn't get home. And I spent 10 days on my own in the nurses' home in Leeds, where all of my friends were English and they all went home to their families for Christmas. But I eventually did get home in April the following year to get all my clothes and things like that. And trained at St James's for 3 years, and I loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Rose, thanks very much. I hadn't forgotten you earlier on. I just thought you've managed. I think now that you've seen what's involved in the evening, you've picked up the courage. So you're very welcome along next Friday morning if you're in Leeds. So brilliant. I think we're going to just wrap things up in a couple of minutes. Can I just before I might, if we've got any questions from the floor, and I know we've covered an awful lot of, tried to cover an awful lot of topics in less than an hour. I'm going to just, so if anybody's got any questions, feel free to pass them over in this direction. I'm not going to say for 1 second that I'll have the answers. And I think from the outset, and I'll bring Roisin in again. We never set out for this project to be a piece of academic research. That was never the idea behind it. It was just something that there would be a record of the experiences, because I think even since we did this project, an awful lot of people have passed away, and if we hadn't sort of, I'm just looking at some of the characters up there, like people from within the community. They'll know some of these faces, and even the two gentlemen there, Phil Moan, he's a good friend of, and they're up there. One of the big contractor in Leeds, no longer with us. A lot of these people. So it was actually, we probably didn't realise at the time, Roisin, that it was to get these memories recorded. And I suppose when it was there, the internet was only just probably becoming as prominent as what it is nowadays. So we were able to actually get a lot of these. It's on there as an online resource, and we've put it down as we've got it there as a slideshow for tonight. So, Roisin, is there anything that we've forgotten? Just help me out on this one. Thanks.
Not that I can think of, I don't think so. But like Des was saying, I think it's the importance of people not having pictures, you know, stuck up in the loft and not being seen again, which is easy to do really over time. And what we went and did is made sure we'd looked at all of them and thought, actually, you know, they're really great pictures and they belong in a collection where they can be seen forever, because it's so easy to get pictures lost. But these are all people's memories and they're things that you can look back on and think, or, you know, when people have passed, for example.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah, the far end is my dad, Mick Ferguson. So it's good to just keep memories and stuff. So it was a brilliant project to be part of, and it was brilliant. It was great.
Great. I forgot. As I say, I hope that we've covered as many bases, if you like, with tonight. As I say, thanks a million for coming along. Go on, Mary. Yep. That's right. I think basically as you went into town from the east of from down the junction from Roundhay Road, they've all gone now. As probably as the Irish community have moved out further out, a lot of those places have gone. But I think that they were really crucial, fundamental places, because I suppose you've got to look back and think, well, some of the houses, there was, I say, lads, 3 or 4 lads sharing a room, 3 or 4 lasses sharing a room. It was a place where you would go to, it was a place where you would go to find work, socialise, meet people from your own place. And it's sort of, it's from what we picked up, it alleviated the sense of isolation amongst the community. And as I say, I've picked up on sort of when, I'll bring our Kev back in again for a second, but when we've been to different cities, and the experiences are very, very similar. You could take of this sort of Hare Hills and Chapeltown community, or all the inner city community around there, Scott Hall, all those sort of areas, and people even from the inner city, Hunslet, Beeston, people coming in to socialise and meet up with people, whether it was before they went to dances. And I suppose you can look at the similar experiences in, say, in Birmingham. You look at areas like Sparkhill, Sparkbrook, Manchester. You look at Levenshulme, Longsight down there, and I suppose the obvious one that people would think, like in London, you're looking at Kilburn and Cricklewood, and in Leeds we had the same thing with Hare Hills and Chapeltown and the various areas down there. And I think just Mary Harkin just touched on there around Sheepscar, where we've got the interchange now. Obviously, I think Roisin's grandparents, it's like all wheels within wheels in the Leeds Irish community. That was where the old Roscoe was, down in there, and it was like it was one of these little pubs. It was about a third of the size. Jim Doody will remember. It was about the third the size of here, but it was well known in the west of Ireland. People say if you go to Leeds, you've got to go to Roscoe. It was probably like in the later years. It was like people saying if you go to Manchester, you've got to go to the Hacienda or something like that. But this place was this was tiny. And I remember, I think, Kev, when Mum first came to England in 1953. There was obviously no mobile phones or anything like that. The instructions that she had from our grandfather was, meet me in the Roscoe at 6 o'clock on a Monday evening. That was her first introduction to life in Leeds. That's about right. So again, an awful lot of similarities between the communities in different cities. And I suppose just about the Mayo connection in Leeds, again, I'm just looking at our Mayo contingent up there. As I say, an absolutely huge county, but it was actually fairly localised in Mayo, where the majority of the community from Leeds came to. Like mum's from, as Kev said, my mum's from down near. Well, she used to say Ballyhornis or Ohomore, but as Kevin said, she says Knock. Since the Pope was in Knock, she says from Knock. But I remember as kids going there, people would have family in, they'd say, in England, and everybody from round that part of Mayo, They had cousins in Manchester. So something like East Mayo, the community would have gone to Manchester, up from the Moy Valley upwards, places that we've mentioned like Foxford, Attymass, all around there, all around from Ballina across to Belmullet. Leeds was a huge destination where they came from. And I suppose, without going down on the social history side, you look at, say, the Irish community in Birmingham, and everybody seems to have got connections with Roscommon. And I know, like, some of the Roscommon community in Leeds, all of them seem to have relations down in Birmingham. So we picked up on that, Rossi, and I think just where communities, we could never actually we could never pinpoint why people from that area came to Leeds. We couldn't put it down to whether it was down from after the famine, whether it was from the woolen mills in Foxford and people coming over to work in the mills in Leeds or across West Yorkshire, or people say it was like somebody was like a family firm that came over and people just followed. We couldn't, and I remember even we asked Tommy McLaughlin, who's been, as you know, has been the manager in the Irish Centre for like 40 plus years, and Tommy was one of the people we interviewed for the documentary, and nobody could. It's, as I say, it was just more in our research. Nobody could actually pinpoint that why people from that area came to Leeds. I'll just throw that in for the social history team over here. We couldn't do it. So have we? I know we're running out of radio space here, Elliot. Have we got any more questions from the floor? I'd like to think we've a bit of audience participation tonight. I think a few people were a little bit in fear when we said this is going out on the radio. If we knew it was, it might have been packed. But no, it's been great to have this project and be back at East Leeds FM working again. I'm going to just move away slightly from the Irish connections, and Jim Doody's wife, Maria, you're going to say a little bit how you got into Irish traditional music, apart from through Jim.
Well, actually, I do have an Irish connection. My grandfather used to train horses for a wild Irishman that went to live up in the Andes in South America, where I was born. And then my second connection is when I met this handsome man. And coming from a family of musicians, I discovered the Baron for the first time, and I fell in love with it. And that's it, I've been playing for quite some time.
And I hated barons, do you know that?
Until he met me. Then, well, yes, so that's it. And I've been playing music with you and Des and Kev and all the Hurleys. And I love the Irish music. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. Elliot, can I just say thanks to yourself and all the team from East Leeds FM for your help and your support, and not just for tonight, but over the last few years, and for yourselves for coming along tonight. I hope you've enjoyed listening to a bit of chit chat, swapping a few stories, having a look at the photographs in there. That I actually haven't seen these for quite a while, so probably a while. That one is in Kirkgate. It's down by Kirkgate Market under. It's a famine memorial stone down there. There's all sorts crop up, and just tell me to keep quiet in a second. There was an uncle of ours that some of you might know, Tommy Canavan. They moved over here in the that's my mum's sister's, Auntie Maureen's husband. They moved over here in the 60s, and Tommy actually used to play in one of the show bands. Some of you might remember, used to play in the show bands. And when we were doing some research on this project, I mentioned it to him, and Tommy was he worked out on the M62 on Scammond and Dam, and worked on for a lot of the, and he actually said, he kept a scrapbook. He kept a scrapbook with all his tickets from the dances and places that he played in all these reunions. And he said, I've just had these in a bag for years. And and things like that, that not just as a relative of ours, things like that, they just appeared. And it was great, so we just put on, we could have got an awful lot more, but I think, if we were doing it nowadays and we had more access to putting the word about, but we didn't keep it as a close-knit secret or anything like that. We just put the word out, and like some of these pictures, and like even things like my Uncle Tommy's photographs of like from the Shamrock and St Patrick's that he just thought were just in a bag for years, and I think he didn't tell his mates because he thought it seemed really, really sad that he kept a scrapbook with all his tickets or his ego or anything like that. But things like that were absolutely invaluable, and I could see a few of you looking at it, and yeah, I remember that, things like from the early 70s up to when they went back to Ireland in, I think, about 1980. The Irish Centre was actually a great resource as well. They were actually, a lot of these photographs, they were in a shoe. Do you remember this, Roisin? They were in a shoebox. They were in a shoebox in the office, and Tommy and Christy and the team, they said, just have what have what you want. But we actually, before we went live with it, we sort of ran it past them to see. Just so as they were happy with it, and as I say, there was look at those lads there. Look at those sideburns, priceless. I'm jealous of his hair, really, but they were absolutely it was absolutely priceless resource. And I think I could go on about this. We were working in a school the other day in St Patrick's, just near here. One of the head teacher there, her dad is in one of those photographs. There's just all sorts that are coming up, and it was, as I say, there's just, yeah, it was, look at that ashtray. There's just all sorts of really, really, really retro. So that's your grandmother there, Roisin, and your grandfather. Yeah. Sorry, this is a little bit indulgent. Just bear with us a sec. Yeah. Look at that. Okay. Can I wrap up, because I think if we started talking about the middle row there would be here till about 10. Would be here till about 10 o'clock at night. As I say, a lot of these from the Irish Centre. But we purposely went out and found. We didn't just focus it on there, and we tried to spread the net, if you like, as wide as we could. Yeah. That's great. I've got those bar shutters there. Sorry, that one there.
It's a shame a lot of them didn't write on the back who was in the photos.
I think, to be fair, Mary, we were very, very lucky that when we went up to the Irish Centre, that Tommy, Christie, and some of the older people, they actually, obviously we couldn't do it for the purpose of the slideshow, but online it actually says who's who on it. We couldn't do it for. If you go on the Irish Arts Foundation website, and it's actually one of the projects that's in there, so, and like these will be some of our contemporaries, Kev, but a bit younger than us now. So, but we managed to delve, we managed to find all sorts. Sorry, can you all see all right there? Do you want to take a photograph of that, Rose, before we go on, and then you can, and that sounds like a good idea. So, Ria Doody on the bowron, Jim Doody on the harmonica, Kevin Hurley on the flute, Eve Hurley on the fiddle, and Roisin Ferguson, or Roisin Comboy as is now. Let's give him a big thank you. Thank you, guys. And we'll, as I said, there's no rush. We just have a cup of tea downstairs, do something good and Irish at the end of the night, have a cup of tea. So we'll just have a cup of tea before we head off. And we'll just finish off with a little jig that, which we go for? Kesh jig. Kesh jig. A little tune that Jim and myself and Kev have played for many years. Roisin and Eve picked it up. A little tune. So thanks very much. Safe home, and thanks for coming along tonight. 2, 3 times. Okay. 2, 3, 2, 3, 4.
What time do you guys wake up at in the morning?
I wake up at 5, 6, 7 or 8.
I wake up about 11 or 12.
I wake up at about 8 and then I listen to East Leeds Community Radio.